Welcome aboard. My name is Joe Farkas, and I'm the architect of this ship. And I'd like to tell you a story. This ship, the design of this ship, as well as all the ships that I have done for Carnival Cruise Lines, has a story. And that story begins with an idea. It's what I'd call a central idea. And that idea is some people like to call it a theme. I don't. It is a point where I begin all the designs. It's an intellectual idea for me to build artistic creations around that all of the public rooms on board of the ship follow, so that to me there is a coherence in the design that varies in how that's interpreted from room to room. The process begins by making the drawings that flesh out the central idea. These are all architectural drawings done to scale that show the floor plans, the ceiling plans, the main elevations and details, some of which we do on computer, but again, the initial drawings are all done by hand. Basically, everything that you see on this ship today is laid out by us and specified by us so that every note is carried out in some particular material or detail around the ship. We then turn all this documentation over to the shipyard, who in turn turns it over to the subcontractors who make each individual public room. And during this whole course of roughly about 2 years, we are in constant touch with the shipyard, going to the subcontractor, seeing mock-ups, watching it under construction. So it is a total hands-on job until the ship is finished and we're all sitting on board like we are now. Carnival Legend is one of the ships that the name of the ship was created before I did the design. And since I had the name Legend, I thought, why not use legends as the central idea? So you'll see represented aboard the Legend many different legends. The legend could be a story, it could be a person, it could be a legendary place. It's always interpreted in very different ways. The legend in the atrium is the Colossus at Rhodes, one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. And we had a special mural created, hand-painted mural, that spans all the decks of the atrium that shows the Colossus spanning the port of Rhodes. The decor throughout the lobbies and atrium really follows a neoclassical design. So you have these urns that are typical of neoclassical architecture with fruit basket on top that's used throughout. Then we have this arrangement of sofas made with framed artwork in between, and the artwork is from the pre-Raphaelite era. And the pre-Raphaelites painted wonderful scenes of legendary characters, which you'll see scattered throughout all the lobbies. The main theater on the Legend is called Follies, and the Legend are the legendary shows and movies of the Ziegfeld Follies from the 20s. So I chose to follow that basic idea in the design of this room, making it look like a theater from the 20s, which is like sitting in the courtyard of an Italian villa, if you will. Our secondary showroom is the Firebird Lounge, and the legend is the Firebird, which is a Russian legend of this mythical bird that came back to life and represented power within Russia. And the legends in Russian artwork are represented by the famous lacquer boxes that they make in Russia. So I had the walls made to create giant lacquer boxes, and we actually got artists from Russia to paint the fairy tales and legends that each scene depicts throughout the room. The restaurant aboard the Legend, I looked at a legendary food, legendary and very expensive because it's somewhat rare, and that is truffles. So the name of the restaurant is Truffles. I thought that the decor could reflect some legendary china patterns. So the main feature of the room are murals on the ceilings, which recreates probably the most expensive china pattern made, Flora Danica. Really look at the details because they've been reproduced in gold paint, and the floral designs are very realistically done. Throughout the room also we have vitrines which have famous china patterns, actual samples of the china in various parts of the room, mainly featuring the Flora Danica pattern right at the entrances. The chandeliers are very, very interesting. They look like they're made out of Murano glass, twisted like some fantastic animal's horns, and creating this wild, almost explosion of glass pieces. When you're in the Unicorn restaurant, you can take this fabulous glass, death-defying stair that soars through the atrium up to the Golden Fleece Supper Club. The name Golden Fleece comes from a Greek legend having to do with the quest of the Golden Fleece by Jason and the Argonauts. And that is reflected in a huge mural that forms the back wall of the funnel, and it represents the legend of the sirens, which is these female sea creatures who had a beautiful song, and they would sing to sailors who were sailing through these very dangerous waters, and they would sort of lose their minds and crash their ship onto the shoals and sink. And associated with that tale is the Medusa and their medallions of the Medusa design, and these embellishments that enhance the story of the Golden Fleece. The casual Lido restaurant aboard this ship is the Unicorn Cafe, and I went back to medieval British history to find the legend of the unicorn, and it was very much a symbol of romanticism of that period. And the unicorn is often depicted in medieval tapestries. So you'll see reproduced on the ceiling and throughout the room tapestries, and they're not woven tapestries, but the computer techniques that we have today allowed us to recreate them. And throughout the room are also some medieval details that represent the Gothic period. For the casino, I turned to King Arthur and the Round Table. And the character I chose is Merlin the Magician. So the casino is called Club Merlin. And the interior is done like King Arthur's castle, with massive columns and lion heads and murals on the ceiling that representing the magical time of Merlin. The legendary sports dream team is represented in our sports bar. And we have expressed this with photographs of some of the greatest athletes of all time. Surrounding the photographs are geometrically shaped wood forms that create a contemporary interior that is embellished by tables that look like bunting from athletic events and carpeting that is done in designs that you would see coming from various balls that are used in sporting events. For the dance club on this ship, I went back to Greek mythology and chose one of the scariest legends of all times, the Medusa. The Medusa was the Gorgon, which is a sort of a witch that was a beautiful woman, but instead of having regular hair, her hair was made of snakes. And if a human being looked her in the eye, you turned to stone. So throughout the room, you'll see these great representations of Medusa done in fluorescent paints and fiber optics and lighting that create her wonderful hair with the snake heads on them. The legendary singer Billie Holiday is the namesake for Billie's Piano Bar, and of course she is a legend to this day. And I chose the style of a sort of streamlined deco design, which was interpreted by the use of a lot of corrugated polished stainless steel, red lacquered panels, and very clean wooden details. Another legendary person was used for the jazz club, and that is Louis Armstrong, and everyone knows his nickname was Satchmo. So it's Satchmo's club, and Satchmo grew up and gained his fame in New Orleans, and I thought it would be really interesting to create an old, run-down bar that you might see on one of the back streets of the French Quarter. So you see the shutters, sort of neoclassical columns, stucco falling off the wall and showing the bricks behind it, and open-work steel beams holding up the ceiling. What we have on board, it's an experience. It's something meant for you to have fun and enjoy and relax and all of those things that you've come on board the ship for. And we spare really no expense in making that happen. Almost nothing that you see on board is off-the-shelf material, so to speak. Everything follows the specifications that I mentioned, but they're all custom-made pieces. It's not a museum, but in a way it's like going to a museum because there is so much to see. And it will really enhance your cruise, I think, by making this a discovery process. My hope is that the environment itself will engender this type of exploration and discovery process. Further, I hope by the end of the cruise you haven't really seen everything yet and you'll want to come back again.